For the Civil Services Examination 2024, there were more than 13 lakh applications, out of which more than 14,000 appeared for the mains, of which 2,800 finally qualified for the interview. And all of this for just 1,105 positions for which applications were called by UPSC. Out of multiple factors, one such factor which has contributed to the success of these candidates who have cleared not just in 2024 but also in the earlier examinations is the fact that these candidates knew what to read and what not to read to ace the Civil Services Examination. And that's exactly what we will understand in this video, because in the market there are 100 resources for every subject that is important for the Civil Services Examination. But a candidate doesn't have the luxury of reading all the 100 materials, and more importantly, a candidate or an aspirant doesn't need to read all the materials. We will understand what books to refer to and what material is not required to ace the Civil Services Examination. Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. If you are someone who is aiming to clear the upcoming Civil Services Examination 2026, you can avail our courses at a discounted price. Once you subscribe to the course, you will get access to the recorded as well as online classes in Hindi, English language as well as a bilingual. You will get access to prelims as well as a mains test series. You will get access to our mentorship services as well as reading material. If you are interested, do check out by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Every subject, in case of the Civil Services Examination, the questions are asked in the prelims as well as mains examination. The subjects that you're supposed to read to ace this exam are polity, economics, international relations, you have ecology and environment, geography, history, science and technology, etc. These are the most important subjects. The questions on these subjects are asked in the preliminary examination as well as mains examination. And a lot of these particular subjects, for example, polity, economy, international relations, ecology and environment, and S&T, they have two components on which the questions are asked. One is the static portion and the other one is the dynamic portion. And in this video, I'll explain to you what are the different materials that you're supposed to refer to cover the portion under the static area as well as the dynamic area. At the same point of time, I will also tell you what is the coverage and where you should stop and resources which are not needed for you to clear the examination. Let me start with the first one, the subject of polity. A lot of questions, on an average 14 to 15 questions every year, are asked from the subject of Indian polity. And for this, to clear the preliminary examination, one book that you are supposed to refer to is the Indian polity book by M. Lakshmikant. But before I go forward, listen to me very carefully here. Is it sufficient to read this book and clear the prelims as well as a mains examination? The answer to this question will be no. As far as I'm concerned, to clear the mains examination, in addition to the knowledge that you gain from reading this book, you must also refer to multiple articles from current affairs. For example, in recent times, there has been a lot of discussion in association with the concept such as delimitation. If UPSC will ask you a question in the mains examination or even in the preliminary examination, they expect you to have read and gained the knowledge from different sources such as M. Lakshmikant book as well as from the current affairs newspaper articles. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, there is one more book by the name, or let's say authored by D.D. Basu. There is a book by Mr. Kashyap as well. Should we not refer to those particular books? If you can read and understand the concepts or the articles or the knowledge from this particular book, reading another book is not necessary to score and get good number of marks from the questions asked from the Indian polity. So one book plus essentially the current affairs resources. And mind you, this is not just applicable to the subject of polity. There are multiple students who are starting, I know, will listen to multiple experts in the market, multiple toppers in the market. The topper would simply say, I've read a book ABC for a particular subject. Should you read 3 to 4 books which covers the same portion for the same subject? Answer is absolutely no. Should you read a particular book which is very technically proficient, which has a lot of technicalities to ace the civil services examination? Absolutely no. Let me give you one example just to illustrate the importance of this particular point. There is one subject in the civil services examination which I also handle and which most of the students feel is very difficult. And that is because the subject is technical in nature. There are a lot of formulas, graphical representation, and there are a lot of jargons or words which a lot of aspirants feel are very difficult. And that is the subject of Indian economy. First and foremost, should you read 2 books or 3 books to cover the concepts in Indian economy? The answer to that particular question is absolutely no. And there are certain experts in the market. There are certain people who will recommend you to read Dutt and Sundaram book. There is a book, Indian Economy by Dutt and Sundaram. There are multiple books. Should you read all of these particular books which are having a lot of technical knowledge or technical language? The answer to that particular question is absolutely no. If you are someone who is starting your preparation, I would argue simply read these 4 NCERT basic books. That's it. 4 basic NCERT books which has very simple language, which have these concepts which are relevant for the civil services examination. That is one book of 9th by the title Economics, a book of 10th class Understanding Economic Development, book of 11th class Indian Economic Development, and finally book of 12th class Introductory Macroeconomics. And just ensure that you will be able to use these particular books, download it. These are available free of a cost online. Use the latest version, and this is not just applicable to the subject of economy, other subjects as well. Do not use the books which are outdated. Do not use the books which have been published 10 years ago, 15 years ago. In the subject of Indian economy itself, from one year to next year, there are so many changes that are going to happen. So that's the reason. Remember a tip. Try to use the latest book. Use the latest editions of any books that you are referring to. So whatever knowledge you require in terms of, let's say, basic concepts in Indian economy. And I know a lot of students have no touch whatsoever with the subject of Indian economy. I would recommend, I would strongly advise, refer to these particular books. What about the other bigger books which are having 2000 pages, which are bulky, which have a lot of technical jargons, etc. I would say, if you are happy with your basics, if your fundamentals are very clear, then you don't have to read this book. Start with one standard book. Latest edition, standard book. Right? That should be more than sufficient. Do not read 3 to 4 standard books. That is not going to add to your information. It will still remain the same. Now, next subject of history. There are hundreds of books because history itself, let's say, unlike other subjects, is divided into art and culture, ancient India, medieval India, and modern India. What are the basic books that you're supposed to read, using which you can score very good number of marks in the civil services examination? One is Indian Art and Culture by Mr. Nitin Singhania. Second, for Modern India, Spectrum. Third, for Medieval India, History of Medieval India by Mr. Satish Chandra. Fourth one is the Ancient India, that is the title of the book is India's Ancient Past by Mr. R.S. Sharma. Now within this also try to identify which are the important areas. Now many of the students will have this kind of a doubt, sir, how do I know which are the very important areas? For this, only two things that you need to understand. One, please have a look at the syllabus. The syllabus will tell you what are the areas that you need to focus upon, because each and every book will have, let's say, 600 pages or 500 pages, or even for that matter, let's say 300 pages. Not all the 300 pages may be relevant for civil services examination. So the syllabus will tell you what to read. And look at the previous year question papers. The moment you look at the previous year question papers, you will realize which are the topics within the syllabus that you need to be more focused upon, that you need to read more, that you need to more add to the existing knowledge from the, let's say, other sources such as current affairs, etc. I'll give you just one example. In the context of polity, every year if you look at, there are multiple questions which are asked on the union legislature, which means that particular area out of the whole syllabus for polity, that area is very, very important. If you take up a subject such as Indian economy, for prelims there is one area that is banking. Out of 15 questions on an average which are asked, 3 to 4 questions in the preliminary examination are asked from the area of banking, which again means you need to focus more on this particular chapter. Keep on adding to the static portion from the current affairs. So these are the 4 books. Beyond this, I know a lot of you will ask me, sir, there is a book by B.L. Grover. Should I read that? There is a book by Poonam Dahiya. Should I read that? If you can basically accumulate by reading the books which are listed here, I would simply say the other books will basically add more of a complexity. These are bulky books, right? More than what is needed, you might end up reading. And again, remember, time is a very important part of your UPSC preparation. Time is limited. You don't have unlimited amount of time. Maximum efficiency you will have to get from the time you're spending on your reading material. So this is the book list for history. What about geography? One area from where a lot of questions are asked, not only in the preliminary examination, but also in the mains examination. I've seen students purchasing book A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And even after that, they are not satisfied, because they will look at the interview of a topper who will say, I read book X. They will listen to a topper who will say, I purchased a book Y. They will listen to a topper who will simply say, I read from IGNO material. And these students or these aspirants who do not understand how to start, how to begin, what to read and what not to read, they will end up purchasing lot of these resources, and they'll end up becoming collector, not the district collector, but a book collector. Let this not happen to you as well. Keep it simple. The key is keeping the preparation simple. So for geography, and I'll add one more subject here, ecology and environment. What are the important books? Class 11th, 2 NCERTs. The title is right in front of you. Fundamentals of Physical Geography, Physical Environment. 2 books, NCERT books. And class 12th, again NCERT 2 books. One is Fundamentals of Human Geography and India, People and Economy. You will not believe this, but trust me when I say this, when you read this particular book, let's say India, People and Economy, you will realize that lot of concepts that you're reading in this particular book are overlapping with some of the things that you need to understand in the subject of Indian economy as well. A lot of times there is the overlapping of these concepts in multiple subjects, and all of this information you can easily derive by reading NCERT books itself. So if you ask me, for the subject of geography, these 4 books are more than sufficient. What about ecology and environment? For ecology and environment, a lot of questions which are asked are from current affairs. There are hundreds of books in the market for ecology and environment. Don't be fooled into purchasing these multiple books. These are very bulky. You'll have to shell out important money, resource, and you will not be able to read and remember everything that is mentioned in the book. But more importantly, ask yourself this question: is this book relevant for civil services? Have the questions been asked on the concepts which are covered in this book in the civil services examination earlier, whether in the prelims or mains? If the answer is yes, go ahead. If the answer is no, or let's say partially yes, then I would simply say it is because a lot of questions have been asked in the current affairs, and current affairs, the information is not there in the book. And the subject of ecology and environment, if you ask me, is one such area. In addition to this, one more such area is science and technology. So for ecology and environment, what is the recommendation then? What should you refer to? I would simply recommend to you the class 12th NCERT book, chapter number 13 to 16. Now, what about subject of science and technology? There are books in the market. The questions which are asked in the ES&T area, science and technology, are mainly from current affairs. These are mainly from current affairs. For example, in recent times, there is a lot of discussion regarding the concept of quantum computing. UPSC might ask you a question on quantum computing, or let's say the mission of quantum computing, which is there in the current affairs. The government very recently has been discussing on the concept of smart proteins. UPSC can pick up a question from the area of smart proteins. There is a discussion regarding entry of Starlink into India. Questions can be asked on the technology used by Starlink, etc. So, a lot of questions which are asked, these are essentially being asked from the current affairs. But even then, I know certain students will say, sir, give me one book where I can read concepts associated with science and technology. I would simply say class 12th science book. Class 12th science book. Okay, so regards to science and technology, class 12th science book. In addition to that, focus on current affairs. What about other important areas? For example, you have international relations. In case of international relations, a lot of students generally read a book by the title of Pax Indica. If you look at the questions which have been asked, let's say in the mains examination or even in the interview, or let's say even in the prelims, those questions, a lot of them are connected to current affairs, or you can easily answer those questions if you read the book by the title Challenge and Strategy, Rethinking India as a Foreign Policy, authored by Mr. Rajiv Sikri. This particular book, in my opinion, is more than sufficient. In addition to this, as usual, you'll have to keep on updating from current affairs. In addition to all of this, what about, right, let's say internal security. In case of internal security, focus more on current affairs. What about disaster management? Focus more on current affairs. In addition to focusing on current affairs, what you can do is you can visit NDMA websites. For example, disaster management. You will get a lot of information from NDMA website itself. That is National Disaster Management Authority website. So these are the important, let's say, the books that you're supposed to read to understand the concept, and more importantly, score very good number of marks in the prelims as well as the mains examination. Now the question arises, we have taken care of the static portion. What about current affairs then? What should we do for preparing for current affairs? Simple. In case of current affairs, please do not run behind multiple newspapers. Use and read only from one newspaper, more than sufficient. Use and read only one newspaper, and within this particular newspaper also, sir, how much time should I spend by reading in reading this newspaper? You will have to spend a maximum 45 to 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour a day or every day. Develop this as a habit. Make it a convention. Every day without fail. Morning, evening, afternoon, doesn't matter. Every day without fail, you will have to read the Hindu newspaper, which is mainly used by the students. And somebody will say, sir, what if I don't want to read Hindu? The language is very difficult. I'm not able to understand the sentences which are there in the Hindu newspaper. I start reading, I feel sleepy, and I'll sleep off on the newspaper. You said 45 minutes to 1 hour. I'll wake up after 1 hour. I'm still on the same page. In that case, what should I do? You can use an alternative of Hindu newspaper, Indian Express for that matter. Language is much easier. Or we conduct every day on this same channel, we conduct Hindu news analysis from 10 a.m. You can simply join this particular initiative and get all the important articles from that particular day's Hindu. So read one newspaper every day. Get the knowledge, keep on adding this particular knowledge to the existing content that you have. Second, should you read the magazines such as Yojana and Kurukshetra? Be very selective in that. Be very, very selective. Yojana and Kurukshetra are monthly magazines published by the government. These magazines, although these are very small in size, 50 pages each, let's say, all the content that is mentioned or given in these particular magazines are not relevant. A lot of these articles are irrelevant, not at all connected to UPSC examination. In such cases, simply skip them. Simply skip, focus on what is needed, what is relevant, focus on only on these articles, remove or ignore the remaining articles. So in order to update, in order to ensure you are covering all the bases, that is, let's say for the static portion, I've given you the list of the books that you are supposed to refer to from each and every subject which are relevant for the civil services examination. And in terms of current affairs also, in order to minimize your effort and maximize the benefit, that is more important. Minimize the effort, maximize the benefit. Ultimately, at the end of the day, focus is upon whether you are getting the right knowledge to ace the civil services examination. So in that particular scenario, focus on the limited material, and toppers, whatever the statements they have given, don't worry about it. The toppers would also have followed the same strategy, wherein for every minute that they're spending, for every hour that they're spending to prepare for this examination, they'll be able to reap the benefits by having concentrated approach rather than having multiple references, referring to multiple notes, etc. to prepare and ace the examination. So that's it from my side. I hope this particular video has answered a lot of questions that these beginners or the aspirants who have started preparing for the civil service examination have regarding what to read, how much to read, and from where to read. In addition to these 3 questions, I've raised one more question and answered that question as well. What not to read? Which resources are simply a waste of your time in terms of efficiency, in terms of adding to your knowledge to ace the exam? If you like the content of this particular channel, do hit the like button. If you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.